to NMP Talk Show, where we delve into the depths of mental health wellness with compassion, understanding, and expertise. Our goal is to provide a safe space for open conversations about mental health, destigmatize the issues surrounding it, and offer insights and resources to support your journey towards a healthier mind and soul. Good evening and welcome to another episode of NMP Talk Show. I am Nthabeleng Sekhokoane, and tonight I'm with Sino Mhuri, and it's our book review. We have been gone for some time, and I'm really excited for this evening because we're talking about something that actually affects majority of the world's population, and so it would be very lovely to have a chat about it. But we also, in addition to Sino, have the author with us tonight. Her name is Nthabeleng, and she will give us a little bit more about herself, the book that she wrote, and we've got a few questions for her. And please, if you do have questions, do dial in, ask your questions either on the Riverside platform where we are broadcasting from, or even on Telegram. Really, this is a free, open platform for you to just express yourself and, give us feedback. But Sino, do you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Slovio Muri here, and so excited to meet you in Nthabeleng because I love this topic. Every young girl needs to hear about this. Yeah.
Good. No, thank you so much. So, Nthabeleng, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and really are looking forward to unpacking your book. I think it discusses a very important subject that most of us are, well, we think that maybe it's a little bit taboo or a little bit scared to talk about. But maybe before we get into the meat of the book, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Firstly, thank you for having me. It's good to be here. Like mentioned, my name is Nthabeleng Sekhokoane. Born and bred in Johannesburg. I'm a journalist, writer, obviously author, working in comms, worked with children's NGOs for the last 10 years as well, and doing my writing as well, journalism. Yeah, so I write children's books. Well, for now, I think I will write other books in future. And this is my second book, CS First Period. My first book was released about 5 years ago, Sing Tanda Sing, for young children, talking about bullying. Very, very lovely and great book. And this time around, it's a book that's focused on girls, like you said, about a topic that shouldn't be taboo, but in some places we know it to be. So really, I just wanted to bring that discussion to the forefront for us to talk about it, because it really is a beautiful journey to, as a young girl, to go through your first period. It's scary, obviously. It comes with a lot of just questions, anxiousness, but it is a beautiful journey to embark into and coming into your own as a young lady and as a woman. So I thought let's talk about it.
Okay. All right. We just lost you there for a moment, Nthabeleng. So sorry about that. But I think one of the things that I personally appreciated, that one, it's not too long a book, and it uses very simple language. I think one of the questions that I had, and before we get to Sina, because she's got a couple of questions and we'll let her then take the floor, is from what age groups have you intended the book to be? I know Sia, she is, or maybe let me just read quickly briefly what the book is about, so that our audience also has context. So here we're talking about Siamtanda, who's a bubbly little girl who loves to play netball. She is worried that the start of her period means she cannot be active in sports anymore. But with the help of her mom, she realizes she has nothing to worry about. follow her journey as she learns and then teaches other girls to be period positive. So that's basically what the book
Yeah.
is about. Is it meant, can you know, parents maybe start looking at the book for kids as young as 7? Because sometimes you hear of girls starting their periods
Mhm.
at the age of 8 or 9.
Yes, sometimes you do hear that. In my research, I definitely came a lot of that, and it is, obviously unexpected, but it's not common. A lot of girls start their puberty at around age 10, sometimes 9. And you would know with your personal experiences, us ladies sitting here and some of our audience members, they know when they started. So already at that age, grade 4, grade 3, grade 5, you're already starting, your body's already starting to change, things are happening, your period is coming or it has come. So it really is an easy way to start the conversation. The book is not very just medically with a lot of jargon where it's very confusing. It is just a book where it's simple, talks about a little girl who is confused, who's a little scared, who doesn't know really what this is, but then she then becomes period positive, and then she teaches other young girls, because it's not a topic we run away from. We know as a woman, you are going to have it, but let's introduce it and let's open up the conversation in a very light but informative way, to say to your young girl, okay, so this is what's happening. You're 10 years old, you're 11 years old. This is what is going to happen. And this is what this means. This is what this means to have your period. This is what it means to start puberty. And this is why, I'm like you said, it's very easy to read. It's not very long because it is targeted to a group of girls who are in that stage, 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, who don't want anything that will be long, that will be confusing. They want something where, you stop and then you talk about it, but also you see yourself in the main character, which is Sia, who can easily just be identified with a lot of girls, with a lot of young girls, to say, okay, I see myself in Sia, and this is me, and let's start to talk about it. Our
Oh, no,
period.
that's, yeah, no, that's, thank you for that. Now, I know all of us have our own stories when we started
Hmm.
having our periods. Sina, maybe you want to share a little bit about that with us?
Yes. So, as you mentioned, I was one of those girls. I was 9.5. And because I was so early, my mom didn't tell me about it. She didn't expect me to start so early. So, funny story, because when it started, it spots at the beginning.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I was in my parents' ensuite, and I ran out like, Dad, I'm bleeding. And he was chilling, like he was just this Saturday afternoon, just relaxing, and he sat up straight and he said, "Call your mom." It's- I remember wondering, like, why is he so freaked out? Like, what's going
Mm.
So when, my mom sat me down, and because she was a nurse, she
Oh,
drew the
no.
whole diagram of everything and showed, okay, the egg is going to go down here and this was going to happen. Honestly, I don't remember the medical stuff. She tried, like, I think she really tried to simplify it, but all I remember her saying is, it means you're growing up, and I caught that if it happens every month, it means you're not pregnant. And those are the two things I went away with.
Uh,
And then I was very excited too about growing up. So I went and told being the extrovert that I am, I went and told all the uncles, everybody, I am growing up, and I was very excited about it. So it was quite a humorous experience for me, and
mm,
exciting. It's only later, like, as I got older and the moods started and the pains, and the body
mhm,
pains were not so big for me, but the
mhm,
mood issues. Um,
Mm.
Sometimes I would feel really withdrawn or just like super sad for no reason, and then a
mhm,
day later it would start. So But otherwise, it was a positive first experience for me. It wasn't that
Mhm.
like confusing or scary. So yeah, that was my experience.
Very nice, very nice.
Very nice, glad
Yeah,
you had a positive experience.
I know it's not everyone's everyone's experience.
Yeah, it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
I think also being young
And
helped because you don't know,
Mhm.
you're not so
mm,
self-conscious at that age. Yeah, so
Yeah,
mm,
100%.
you understand.
I
Yeah.
curry. And for you, Nthabeleng?
My experience was also positive and humorous, also a little bit. I remember the date was the 11th of March,
Wow.
2012. So I was turning 12 that year, so I was 11 years old. And already at school, at LO class, they already started talking about it, but obviously not in detail. I knew what it is. My mom is a primary school teacher, so she luckily was also aware of this. And even, you know, at school, kids would come up to her and ask for pads, and that's where the period positive poverty comes in. But that's a bit later. But just my
Mm,
experience was I noticed the first time I noticed blood, I was like, oh, I think I remember what this is. They told us something about it at school. So, but then I was still like, what do I say? What do I do? So I waited for my
mm,
mom to come back from work. I remember I took toilet paper and I scrambled up and I just put it in my panty. And then my mom came back from work and I said, Mama, ke tswa madi ko kgomong. And then she is just so shocked because, we have names for private parts and we have names for different things. And she was so shocked. She's like, we are Mensa. That was her first word. I'm like, yeah, Mensa. And, then she just sat me down and she said, okay, this is how we're going to go about it. This is how you know, the talk was, I remember, more hygiene, heavy, like this is how you
mm,
clean yourself, this is how you look after yourself, this is how you dispose of your sanitary pad, this is how you know what I mean? But it was a comforting conversation. It was a comforting talk that I had with my mom,
mm,
and really also with me. So, like the moods and all the changes and just the different experiences came, hormones and all came later. But I was equally um, excited. I was just in my friend group, one of the first girls to start. So I was also like, oh, guys, I started. So then became the mentor, so to speak, to other girls, and they started months later because at that time, then every day
Yeah,
is D Day. You just don't
everybody.
know when it will happen.
mm.
But it was
Yeah.
it was positive. It was humorous, and thank God I had a mom who was quite open and lovely about it and talked to me through it.
Okay.
That's
No.
lovely.
Wow. Lovely. No, I really am glad that both of you ladies had a very positive
Yeah.
entry into this change of life. But what I specifically remember
Mhm.
about me when I started, man, for weeks I had this pain and it was like I couldn't explain what it was. And, I thought I needed to go to the bathroom, but nothing was happening. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what is this? And my mom is very open about a lot of these subjects. So growing up, it was never like hidden from us. She would tell us, everything, birds and the bees, as we call them. So she was
Yeah.
very open about it.
Mhm.
Um, but when they eventually came, you know what she said to me? She's like,
Uh,
now you have to stay away from boys. And like literally, that's the only thing that I remember. And it
mhm.
was like, if I see a boy, I run in the opposite direction because I'm thinking,
That is
okay,
adorable.
but that's what she said to me. She said, now You have to stay. And so
Don't
I was very conscious of that. Like, and going to a co-ed school, it becomes a bit difficult because like
Of
there's boys
course.
everywhere. So it is like, no, don't talk to me because something is going to happen. I don't know what it is, but I know what it is, but stay away from me. So but I had a lot of struggle with a lot of period pain. So I think maybe that's where the negativity came from. It sort of didn't come later on. I mean, yes, when it starts, it's a bit erratic, you don't know, but then once it becomes sort of constant, that was just, I'd be out of commission for a couple of days. So yeah, not a fan.
And
But
how old were you?
so I was 12. So just about to finish grade, what do they call it now? Grade 7? Grade 5?
Yeah, grade 6.
Grade 7, right?
Yeah,
Grade 7.
Yeah.
So no, so I was just in the last standard before going to high school. So again, I'm also a little bit of a late bloomer as well. So maybe that could be another reason where around me, I already had, friends and girls that would have started in the standard before. And I was in, so just the standard just before high school. And Laxia in the book, there's a lot of things that I liked to do, but I sort of gave up because of just the fear of, like leaving evidence behind. Because like at school, I was an avid swimmer, sort of gave that up. But yes, in a couple of years later, kind of like learned that there's a way of getting around it. But so that was my experience. I stayed away from boys because I was told now I have to.
Wise advice.
Yeah.
From
Yeah. Exactly. So no. So that's what happened. Yeah, that's what happened with me. But maybe, Sia, would you like to get into some of the questions that you wanted to ask our author?
Okay. Is she still with us?
Yes, she's back.
Oh, sorry about that. My Wi-Fi is being naughty. My apologies.
No problem.
No problem. Yeah.
So first, I just wanted to comment on the cover and the illustrations. I especially like the intro illustrations here because it's showing, I don't know if it's showing all the sanitary items in such a cute, pretty and pink sort of way, which normally it's not shown in that light. Hey, like people just don't. It's like I don't want to see. I don't know if you've ever seen like fathers being sent to buy those items at the shops and they're just like, "Can I hide?"
You can't even send your husband to go and get that for you. It's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that they were illustrated in such a positive, pink and cute way that makes it light and approachable and not so scary for young girls. Absolutely love that. So yeah, I loved how light it was because it's easy for young people to understand. My little girl is only 7 and she immediately wanted to grab this book. She was just like, this pretty pink book is for me. But I'm not sure if I'm ready. I'm waiting as well. But if she's like me, I'll probably have to at least start telling her next year.
So when you're talking about when you start talking about that, I actually remember one of my friends, she's got daughters. Yeah. And she was saying, no, she could see that her daughter was going to start early because I think that she was one of those that like had it started around 8 or 9. Yeah. So, and I again, I'm not sure, how much genetics or your own experience has to do with when it starts. But this is not a medical sort of discussion. But it would be interesting maybe to explore it from that perspective. if any doctors are listening, maybe
Let us know.
they
Tell us about
can,
it. Yeah.
yeah, they can let us know.
Yeah, no,
Um,
so
I
true.
wonder if Nthabeleng, are you still with us or
Please
trust me,
forgive me.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah, it's
Don't stress
exactly
about it.
have no
Don't
idea.
worry. Always gremlins in the system,
Always.
Uh-huh.
and that's why I like the book review, because it's like a conversation. Sometimes somebody coughs or there's a phone call that comes in, so it's okay. It's okay. We move.
We
Don't
move, we
worry.
move.
Yes,
The show must go on.
we.
My
Of
apologies.
course it has. No, don't stress. Yes. So the inspiration behind the book.
So the inspiration comes from really my circle, my friends who have young girls who are about to enter that phase. Some have entered. They really were sharing with me their experiences. They were sharing with me how, how do I start this conversation? Ke a bona ngwana is about to start, or, I myself am a little scared because my mom never shared it, or anyone from my family. So I really did hear that a lot from my circle, from my friends. And I said, but why isn't there just an easy, beautiful storybook that will talk about this, that will introduce parents, not just mommies and daughters, but whoever the guardian is, but also dads as well. And then I said, you know what, let me, because, my love for children and working with children's NGOs, but also my background in writing and journalism, I said, you know what, like I did with the first book, let me bring my loves, which is writing and children, and just write a beautiful story that will get the parents kind of just to open the door about this topic, but also do it in a way that is light-hearted, but still informative, still friendly, to say, okay, if Sia is going through this and Sia's just like you as well can be fine. If you're already playing netball, if you're already playing soccer, if you can still do those things. It's a way to give out information in just a positive way, and a kid-friendly preteen way. So that really where is my inspiration coming from, based on what my
Yeah.
girls were saying, and I was like, why?
No, I like what she's saying about the experiences from friends, because this is quite a difficult one to break the ice with sometimes, with the children. How can I say it in an approachable way for that age where they
Yeah.
can understand it, you know? And what I love is that what she's saying about reading it together, it can open up questions that the child might not have thought about, like sports. Like for me, I didn't even think about activities like, when I was
Yes,
12.
you're so right. So, a lot of girls, they think because it's that time, and also just based on, old wives' tales, like you can't wear white, you must wear tights, you must just sit
Yes.
still and observe that week. And, you can't live like that. And if you're a young girl who is in sports, who's in cultural activities, who's at school, you can't have that week where you just, out of
The,
commission and you just sit it
yeah.
out. You have to
Mm.
just let life continue. And this is what I talk about in the book, to say you can still do whatever you want, you can still jump around, you can still do. This is just an add on to your already working lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how
But
you
yeah.
oh, sorry, yes, it's terrible.
No, I was just saying that this thing about being out of commission, because
Uh-huh.
you almost told, like, yes, relax,
Uh-huh.
don't be
Retreat. Yeah.
out there, and I mean, for those that it's like 7 days, for
Yeah.
those it's like 3 or 4 days, maybe it's not too bad, but I mean, just
Mm.
think about where your life literally stops for
Uh-huh.
7 days
Wow.
Every
every
month.
month.
Yeah.
No.
It
And
cannot be.
that
we're
no.
still active. We're still like, you still want to run and jump, and
Uh-huh.
like now often one of the things I used to hear a lot is that now you're a young lady. You have
Uh-huh.
to just conduct yourself like a young lady now.
Yeah.
You can't just jump and like that's, but you're still a young girl, you know, you still want to do those things. And I think it can
100%.
really have an impact on you emotionally to have to
Yeah.
just shrink yourself now.
Yeah, I
Um,
think the messaging is so important. And, any legal guardian, any parent, mom, dad, it's such a sensitive time because when you talked about your experience, what you took away. When
oh,
I talked about my
And I knew
experience,
that was like a very good point.
yes, I was like, ooh.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah, ish, yeah.
Ah, man, these gremlins in the system
They're not leaving
are
us
just
alone.
no, 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 not at all, not at all. But we soldier on, we soldier on. So hopefully, she comes back, and it's so interesting because during the testing it was working just fine.
It was.
So yeah, no, whoever is listening, we do apologize for the gremlins in the system. We know that Nthabeleng is working very hard to make sure that she's back
Yeah.
with us. But myself and Sino can definitely speak about our own experiences and what we've learned from this book. But if you have any questions, please do ask either on Riverside or even on Telegram. As mentioned, this is not a medical discussion. It's more of a light-hearted conversation because the book is written in such a way that it's a story of a young girl and her experience. And so if you also want to share your story, we would really welcome that. But, Sina, just going back to what I was talking about period poverty. I mean, I remember missing some school days because, we just did not have the money to go and buy the supplies. And it was like, and at home with two girls. So you can understand.
Wow. Having to share the two.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that has sort of stayed with me because I just have it's even sometimes causes such anxiety if I'm like, I feel like my supply is low, given that that's what I sort of also went through during my childhood.
yeah.
So and it's a real thing, and I know we're gonna come back to that. We're gonna come back to that specifically. And what Nthabeleng in her research also found, where that is concerned. And it's so sad that, we seem to have moved so far as people, but yet these things are still,
Are still
it's
happening
still,
to a lot of
it's
younger
still
girls.
right. Yes, yes, yes. So yeah, it's sad, but anyway. Sorry, Ntabile, I know you were sharing a very interesting, yes, sorry, before you got cut off.
Yeah, I was still saying, the messaging is so important when you begin this phase, when a young girl begins this phase, because they will take away what you say. So, and I was saying, there are many ways that will lead you to paths of womanhood. And sometimes when your first period comes, it's like, now you're a girl, you have to sit still, you're a young lady, you're a woman, you can't move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So different. I
And
love that the messaging must be positive.
it must be positive because
Yeah.
there are other things that would lead you to womanhood. So you can't restrict it just to you starting your period or the young girl starting their period. So
Yeah.
it must be positive, open, but still informative.
Correct.
Yeah. And speaking of what you were saying, Sistemko, about the panic of running out of the items, now I love how nowadays there are so many different reusable products, like those little
Yeah.
cups and the period panties, which I was quite skeptical of those at first. I was like, I don't
Hmm.
know, but they're actually very comfortable and very
Yeah.
convenient. So a young girl would not be so terrified that, oh, my pads have run out, or my
Yeah.
tampons, or there are many, and also I've seen on socials there are some gifting services where you can
Yes.
do a little box and put
Yes.
cute little like chocolates and like maybe a book like this, for instance,
Yeah.
Yes.
and
Yes. Yeah.
like things like period panties and all that. And that's a very nice sort of cheerful way of sharing with your child. Like, here you
Mm.
go, this is your rite of
Yeah.
passage. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. It's so funny that you're talking about that box gift. Since the book has been out, a lot of mommies have been sharing, just putting the book as part of the period package, and they put
Yes.
some,
Oh.
the sanitary pads, reusable, the
Mm,
cups, the sweets, some hot chocolates, and then the book on top, and just gift it to
Yes.
their daughter. So you already feel like, oh, this is a beautiful thing that is happening to me.
Mm.
It comes with its pains and cramps and whatever, but this package, it opens that conversation. And 100%, there are many organizations that do gift young girls with free pads, with free sanitary towels, with free, even the reusable period panties. A lot of people, even with the cups, were very skeptical about it. But these
Mm.
are different, even tampons, there are different ways to
yeah.
Yeah.
to maneuver those few days that you are you're on your period, that even if you to Debo's point, you don't have the resources, reach out to organizations, like I Menstruate, but there are many more. I talk about
Mm.
I Menstruate in the book, because they're such a
Yes.
great organization that, just teaches young girls, very education focused about this, but also providing free reusable sanitary towels, because sometimes money is a factor, and sometimes you can
Yeah.
donate in terms of these companies as much as they want, but sometimes you have to open yourself up to the idea of reusable products, and the cups,
Mm.
the period panties are one of those amazing resources that you can also introduce to your young girl. Even for us, who have been on this rodeo now for a very long time, it's good to be open to these products as well. Very
Mm.
convenient when you're traveling, when you're
Yeah.
up and about. And we know now it's not just pads, it's not just tampons, it's a
Mm.
marriage of other things. Yeah.
Mm, mm.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I love that they've brought in these new ways of making women and young girls especially much more
Yeah.
comfortable and at
Yeah.
ease
Yeah.
with the whole thing. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Mm.
No, certainly. Um, so just getting back to, I wanted to make a comment that
Yeah.
like on the cost side, I mean, I don't know if you sometimes just look at just the price point of these products, even on a
Mhm.
month to month basis, that we still, just it's so difficult to just even walk into a store and make sure that
Yeah.
you have enough supplies for just that week. So
No,
reusable.
100%.
And can we get in contact with, I know the organization that you do mention in the book,
Mhm.
do they take donations from, or how do they work? Maybe if you
Yes.
just give us a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's imainstraight.org. It is a wonderful organization that, yes, you can donate to, that you can reach out to. There are many others. I also am sit in a couple of teams with the Department of Women, Children, and People Living with Disabilities that seek out ways to educate young girls in schools and communities, but also seek out ways to assist them, to give them these products, to talk. Yes, the price is in it can be sometimes be expensive, but what I've also seen, sometimes when you walk into just the normal healthcare stores that we know, there are
Mm.
opportunities for you to donate. So if you can, even as an
Yes.
individual, that big huge box that
Yeah.
sits up front. If you have the ability
Mm.
to, when you're buying for yourself, if you have the resources just to buy an extra packet, it will go to people who I need. You know, this will be an ongoing, obviously, thing. But
Mm,
I always encourage people to remember to, if you can, just buy an extra pack donated. But also, there are, I know, you know, products that are priced at a very low that are priced at a very low cost in other stores
Mm.
as well. So you want to look around, you want to check around, but you want to be open. Go to
mm,
imenstruate.org, see how you can collaborate with them, see how you can give. You know, a little goes a long way.
ah,
Oh man.
yeah. I went,
It's like
did you
where
see the website? I went to imenstruate .org,
yes.
and I
Okay.
loved how on there they showed a few facts, about like 1 in 5 girls is struggling with not having enough
Sure.
sanitary pads in South Africa and things like that. I was surprised to find one of the points was some of them don't even know what's happening to them, and they actually think they're dying because now they're bleeding and they don't know what's happening and they're shocked and they're traumatized, like they're thinking something bad is happening to me because
Yeah.
nobody's told them about it. So it's really, you know I think if you've never experienced that yourself, you wouldn't think someone else would go through
Yes.
that. And it made me think
No,
of, yes, sorry.
what you're saying, like whatever, like what's happening, you
Mm,
just brought back a memory that you said it happened at home. You were at home.
yes. Yeah.
Nthabeleng was at home. I was also at home. But
Yeah.
I know of girls when we were in school, they started not feeling well. And
Sure.
then it was still like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. So school was long
During the
before it
end
was
of the
supposed to.
day. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I went to at a time to school where we didn't have, I mean, there was like a sick room, if you want to call it that, and
Mm,
that's just for you
Yeah,
to
yeah.
just go lie down for a few seconds,
yeah,
and they
Yeah.
call your mom or your dad to come and pick you up. But that's where it ended. They wouldn't even give you anything like an aspirin if you
yeah,
had a headache. So even those resources, if you found yourself in school, I can just imagine how traumatic that experience could
It
be,
is,
yeah,
yeah.
especially if also the parents did not have that conversation with you before it happened, and you just like, what is going on?
mhm,
Yeah.
With yeah, with my body.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
And this is
scary.
why
Yeah.
talking, it eliminates as much as we can, even in schools.
Mm,
Talking, it eliminates, the fear, the stigma, the judgment. It
mm,
says,
Mm.
giving an example of my mom being a primary school teacher, she has young girls come up to her all the time, to a point where she personally buys sanitary pads and puts them in the boot of her car
oh,
so she can
that
give
is
them
so
out. Because
mm,
sometimes it's not your mom, it's not your aunt, it is your teacher who'll say, what is
mm,
happening. Sometimes she'll be the first person you tell to say, ma'am, this is this. And then she, reaches out. But because you see there is a need, go ahead and
Yeah.
be a champion for that girl. But just keep talking. The more we talk about it, the more even the boy children, will
mm.
be just open. They'll know it's not something to tease,
Yes.
go over, but it's
Yeah.
something to say, okay, this is what happens to a girl. Let's go ahead and be educated about it. So
Yeah.
I always say just keep talking about it.
I don't know
I
about
think
you
you've
guys.
opened up, yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry. I just
Yes.
yeah. I just wanted to say, at school,
Uh-huh.
my male teachers were very like, if you just said period, like
Mm, mm.
if you wanted to get out of anything, some girls I remember would use
100%.
it, right? They'd be like, "Oh, sir, I can't do PE cramps. I can't do PE today,"
Exactly.
and so we're just like, "Okay, do it."
Yeah. And it's
I
like,
do.
I don't want to
No,
hear.
so I do wish the school system would actually,
Mm,
have a program for teachers in general, male,
Uh,
female teachers, to help them better understand what do we do when children come to us and they're
yeah.
having this situation. I imagine some kids might even lock themselves in the toilet, like
yeah,
some
Mm,
girls. And so, like, how do we handle this? And I love what your mom is doing, having the
yeah.
stuff there ready and
yeah.
willing to help guide these young girls.
Mhm.
But I can imagine, like, if I started at school and I went to one of my male teachers, and they're the first person I can talk to, and they're like, "Whoa," like,
Yeah,
it would be
yeah,
so, it would be so shocking for me, like,
I
you
see.
know. So it would be
Yeah.
so nice if more teachers and even male teachers were more like how your mom
Actually.
is doing things.
Yeah.
Oh, it would be so nice. And I think, you know, the I want to say the world, but I think community and society, it's gearing towards that, and I think it will be much better in future. I think having books like these, having these conversations on this platform,
Mm,
it will say maybe we should do a bit more in the schools. Maybe I can contribute more to, centers around me to, if I'm in corporate, maybe I can invite organizations to go to the schools to talk about it. It's about doing the bit that you can in your space to
Yeah.
contribute to overall period positivity.
mm.
Mm.
No, very true. And I think like this conversation that we're having now talks also a little bit about empathy,
Mhm,
because
Mm.
sometimes in our conversations we don't necessarily have that.
mhm,
Where there is a divide also between the haves and the have nots.
yeah,
Or you were talking about also teaching the boys so that they don't tease
mhm,
Mm.
girls. And that comes out a lot also in the book, when Sia goes and now helps her
yeah,
friend who's
yeah,
going through the same thing. um how important is it to have almost like a camaraderie type of
yeah,
situation where it's like it's a normal thing, good,
yeah,
nothing to stress about, and show
yeah.
that empathy and fellow feeling, so to speak.
Mm. I think community is important. Advocacy is important. Transparency, education is important for teachers, for boys, for everyone who's involved. Because this, yes, it's what the girl goes through, but it is everyone's issue because we are all affected. You know what I mean? So, you have a daughter. If she goes through it, you say, you might have started first in your friend circle, but be open but tell your friends about it. Make them feel comfortable. Tell your baby brothers about it. Tell your older brothers about it. Make them know. Make them feel comfortable. How. If you're feeling cramps, would you suggest your brother to bring you a hot water bottle, or just anything that could assist you? And you can only doing that by destigmatizing period
Yeah.
conversations, and you can only do
Mm.
that by making it a family topic, a family issue, and something everyone is involved with. To say, it's not necessarily like, oh, it's that time of the month, I can't do anything. I'm pretty. But that, oh, like, what do you want? Can I bring you a hot water bottle? Do you have cramps?
Mm.
What do you want?
Mm.
And you do that by talking. You do that by acceptance. You do that by opening it up everywhere you go
Mm.
to, even
Mm.
as the mom or the guardian in that situation, to invite your girl child over to see you. Like, even mommy's going through this, so you're not the
Yeah.
only one. And,
Yeah.
at school, you won't be the only one, even your teacher,
Mm.
and you make
Mm.
it a community issue, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, no.
I wish, on my point of empathy, I wish this book
Uh-huh.
was there when I was growing up because Sister was mentioning she struggled with,
Yeah.
when they would run out, she'd panic. I never had that experience, so I didn't know other girls had that
Uh-huh.
experience. And I remember in primary school, there was a young girl who used to have an odor. And now, when I'm thinking back, I'm like, oh, she was probably on her period. And maybe she either didn't have the pads or maybe there was no one to guide her. Maybe she hid it from her parents. Some girls hide it and
Mm.
they just go to school as per normal. So I remember seeing other girls used to kind of like cover their noses and laugh at her. And I would just feel sorry for her, like, shame. I wonder what's wrong. Like,
Mm,
but none of us thought, hey, Sammy, her name was Sammy, I remember, and like none of us just went up to her and said like, "Hey, are you okay? Like, can we help you?
Yeah.
And I wish that we could, I think probably in homes, that's probably where we can teach, and like you're saying, programs at school, teach young girls to talk to each other and not like skinner in the behind their
Yeah.
backs or points at them, or because it's not just the boys, it's also other girls that can make
yeah.
you
100%.
feel
Mm,
really bad about yourself. So I wish I
mm,
knew better at that age. I was too naive to understand
Yeah.
that not everyone is having my experience, like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
this kind of knowledge is really, I think it'll change so many lives and so many
yeah.
girls, like,
Amen.
just their existence at school to get through this period.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope it does. And I always work with the schools. Just with my previous book that talked about bullying, and it was into schools, and it was brought into also by the Department of Basic Education in Gauteng. So for me, it's
Mm,
also the reach, the scale of it, because it is positive messaging. And if, just a few girls can be more aware now than they were, like with
Mm,
us, it really also was a very like hidden thing, and you just told those around you. But
mm,
if it just becomes part of normal growing up, like just how boys, their voices are gonna break. This is gonna happen to them. Just as girls, this is gonna happen to us. This is what's gonna happen.
mm,
And it is my desire to have it, reach, you know, just schools, communities, just everywhere. And this is with the organizations that I work with, to do that, to say this is the only way, and this is how we can introduce, such conversations, by just having them there and being open about it, in our
mm,
daily normal lives, in schools, at workplaces, and so forth.
yeah. No, yeah, we hope so too. Because it's as you mentioned, really an important subject to talk about. Maybe another question from my side
Mm,
is the book only available in English, or are there plans to translate it into other languages? If at all.
yeah, that's such a great question. Currently, it is just available in English. There are
Okay.
plans and in the works to have it translated in other languages as well. Inclusivity, you don't want to leave anyone out. And I'm
Mm,
just well aware of, it can't just be in English. So, yeah, working on to have it also in other languages as well.
okay.
yeah,
Okay,
that'll be awesome.
and no, that would be awesome,
Yeah.
to have it in. And I mean, yes, the English is very simple, and
Yeah.
it's not that difficult to understand. I think,
Mhm.
if somebody, you don't even necessarily have to be too conversant in the language of English to actually
Mm,
understand the contents. But
Mhm.
I think, if it is available in other languages, it might be a good idea. And then where can we purchase the book, or where can we, get hold of it?
Yeah, I'm so excited that Sina has her copy. It just makes me jump for joy. The book is available at Book Circle Capital. It's a bookstore in 27 Boxes in Marvel for those who are in the area. But those who aren't, ethnikids.africa, so www.ethnikids.africa, has the book. They deliver countrywide. So you just go into the website, you purchase the book, and then it will be delivered. I have a Facebook page as well, CF's First Period, just to talk about it, share the fun things I do, with just conversations about the book. So that's where you can get it. If you want to inbox me there, you can also inbox me there. But Ethnic Kids is your best bet for a nationwide reach. ethnikids.africa.
And by the
Okay. No.
way, I ordered
Yeah.
through Ethnic Kids and it came in like a
Uh-huh.
day. I was so shocked. I was checking out, I was like,
Yes,
this is
that's
like
so good.
in the next like 3 days. Like it this guy was by
Mhm.
my door. I'm like, oh, already,
I
thank you.
love that. No, I love that.
Efficiency,
Yeah.
efficiency,
Yeah.
Efficiency. No,
important.
Very
that's
efficient.
Yes.
what we do.
Mm.
That's what
Yeah,
we
very
do.
important.
And I'm keeping it for
Yeah.
my little girl. I'm holding
Yeah.
onto
Yeah.
it so that when she's, of age, I'll
Yes.
share it with her. Yeah.
Keep it, because information doesn't rot. So,
Yeah.
Mm.
it'll be just an amazing gift for her. And I'm so glad you just so open and so cool about this conversation and topic. I think she's lucky to have a mom like you who will
Mm,
introduce her to this, and she'll be like Sia and go on to teach and
To help other
motivate
people.
other girls as well.
I
yeah.
think also
No.
it's our moms,
Uh-huh.
because my
Mm,
mom was also just like your mom, Temko, and your
Mhm.
mom, Nthabeleng, very open
Yeah.
about this stuff. Words on the
Yeah.
beach. She was
yes.
like, listen, don't go to your friends, come to me. Your
Come
friends
to
know
me.
as much
Yes.
as you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
so come to
Yeah.
me.
Come
Yeah,
to
so
me.
it's like we pass it down, you know.
Yeah. 100%.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, yeah, my mom was not about to have my friends tell me anything. She was like, no, if you've got a question,
I'm the person.
I am the information well. Ask me, and then it's okay. Because what your friends
Yeah.
are gonna tell you is very
Mm.
wrong.
Yeah. 100.
Absolutely incorrect. So
So
I want to
true.
give you the right information.
And
So
this
no,
is
I'm very
with
grateful to my
just
mom.
different topics as well, and not just, the
Yes.
period
No.
conversation. You want to go
No,
Can
to
I
and
everything.
you
Can I just
trust.
share a funny story about
Yeah.
not listening to friends? Because
Uh-huh.
I was, I'm short now, but, in primary school, I was a tall, chubby, I was one of the tall girls, right? So
Uh-huh.
everything came early and, my chest started early. And this one
Mm.
girl looks at me and she says, you must be pregnant because my big sister, she got pregnant and her boobs got really big. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, but don't you have to sleep with a boy? Like, I haven't done anything with a boy. And she goes, neither did my sister. But she, so 3 days,
Sorry, I'm not
guys,
Mm.
the
laughing.
panic. I think I was like, I don't even know how old I was. I was so young. And I had
Oh
such
my
panic.
word.
I went home and I sat for 3 days without telling my mom because I thought, "Yo,
Sure.
how
You're
am I going to
pregnant.
tell my mom I'm pregnant?"
Yes.
Like, so, so one day I went up to my mom and I was like, "Mom, I sat her down. I was like,
Yeah.
I have to tell you something. Like one of the girls at school, she said, and I think, my mom, like she started laughing and then she had to
Oh
compose
my word.
herself. Like, no,
You
your
can't
friend
miss
lied to
Yeah.
you. So it's
Yeah.
really like, we can really give ourselves panic if we don't go
No,
to
we
the
can.
therapist.
We can. We can. And
you
so
can.
we're very grateful for books like Nthabeleng's that at least
Cheers.
help the mom, the parents, because also the
Mm,
fathers,
yeah.
sometimes maybe it might be something that they're not comfortable in discussing, but at least
Mm,
sort of opens the way for them to have an open and frank, honest
Yeah.
conversation
mm,
uh, about just a natural process in, as I said, most of the world population is women. So yeah, it's more people actually having a period than
Those who
Yeah.
aren't.
right?
Yeah.
They're not. It's true. So if we can all have an open and honest conversation, that would be great. And it's the right information that's going to save a lot of people keeping secrets for 3 days, and you sort of like don't know how to broach the subject. But
Imagine
that's very funny, Sina.
Yeah, it's so funny. Imagine if you had to see her, how, when she was advising me,
Yes.
then you'd be like, because also friends of our little girls, they have influence a little bit. Just like you were
Very
influenced for 3 days, you thought you were pregnant, but even though you know that's
funny.
not how, you know what I mean? But imagine if you were told like correct information.
Yeah,
So it's good
That's
to
true.
correct.
teach and have our
Young
young
girl.
girls know that when you tell this to your friend, it's accurate and it's true.
Yes. Oh man. But we really, really appreciate your time in Nthabeleng. I don't know if you have any last words for our listeners. I know we've covered where we can get the book. Are you going to? I know that you did say that you're going to be writing other books. Are there titles in, or are there? What other subjects are you going to be looking at that we can be on the lookout for it?
I think I have something I'm working on for women. It's not always going to be for children, but for now, that's what it is now. But that's me. I enjoy writing, and I also just enjoy just sharing experiences. Just like in this platform, if I'm going through it, probably you going through it as well. Or if I have these thoughts, you probably have these thoughts as well. And it's just a community thing. So in general, and you'll see more of my work that is different. But I'll always, I'll let you know.
Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. We would really
But yeah,
appreciate that, so
just
that the next
yeah.
book, but even the first one, so maybe we can talk offline and see how we make it happen.
Yeah.
Sino, any last words from you before we sign off?
Oh, just so grateful that a book like this exists here in our local space, that we can
Mm,
share with our young children and our girls and in the schools, because there is so much, I think we take it for granted, this natural process that, oh, it
mhm,
happens, we all had it, it's fine. But I would like for dads to get involved, moms,
mm,
teachers, everybody to get involved in helping young girls to really get comfortable in their skin about this topic.
mhm.
So thank you so much for thinking of this and implementing it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I had fun writing it, and I have fun talking about this topic. I think it's so beautiful, and it's not anything disgusting or dirty or taboo. So yeah, let's continue the conversation with it.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, beautiful ladies, for tonight's book review. Really, it was absolutely awesome to have a chat about a subject that is close to women's hearts. So if you have a young sister or a niece that is about to enter this wonderful, beautiful phase of their life, please do get your hands on this book. It's easy. It's about 16 pages long. It's really not that long. And the language is simple. It has illustrations that can also help you, discuss maybe some concepts that might be a bit difficult, even though it's not from a medical perspective. So please do get your hands on that. As Nthabeleng mentioned, you can go to the Facebook page, Sia's First Period, or Ethnic Kids to get a copy of her book. And with that, we say good night until the next book review. We really loved having you. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good night, ladies.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
It's